I was the second-born, but I learned early that second meant invisible. Emma, my older sister by 3 years, was the sun around which our household revolved. Everything she did, no matter how small, was met with praise and indulgence. If she scribbled on the wall, it was creativity. If I did the same, it was misbehavior. My report cards were expected to be perfect. Hers were laughed off with, "She's just not academic, but she's got spirit." I remember being 8 years old, working so hard on a school project. I made a volcano model that erupted with colored vinegar. When I showed it to my parents, they barely looked up from the glittery, gaudy drawing Emma had made of a unicorn princess. "Wow, sweetie. You're so artistic," Mom cooed, kissing Emma's head. Dad chuckled and nodded at me. "Yours is nice too, Amelia." It hurt. Every single time. Over the years, Emma's flaws were painted over with excuses. Her tantrums were sensitivity. Her bullying of other kids was misunderstood confidence. When she lied, it was imagination. When she stole my makeup, my clothes, my diary, it was dismissed with, "Don't be so possessive. You should share with your sister." I wasn't angry then. I was confused. I kept asking myself, what's wrong with me? Why isn't it ever enough? As I grew older, I learned that there wasn't anything wrong with me. The wrongness was in their biased eyes. In their obsession with Emma's need for attention. In their unwillingness to nurture 2 daughters fairly. By the time I was in high school, I'd stopped trying. I became quiet. Focused on studies, on staying out of the way. I found solace in books, in my small group of loyal friends, and later, in my career. I built my worth on things I could control, because clearly, I could never be enough for them. Emma, meanwhile, breezed through life. She married young handsome guy, lavish wedding, paid for by our parents, of course, and moved into a lifestyle she never earned but felt entitled to. And when it started crumbling, I was the last person surprised. I met Nathan at a work conference. He was confident but never arrogant, kind but assertive. He looked at me the way no one ever had, like I was important. Like I mattered. We fell in love fast. It scared me at first, how natural it felt. But with Nathan, I learned how healthy love should feel. We didn't need drama to feel alive. We had laughter, trust, late-night talks, and quiet Sunday mornings. He met my family and sensed the tension immediately, but he never said a word until I brought it up. That's how gentle he was. We got married in a modest but beautiful ceremony. My parents attended but offered no support. Not emotional. Not financial. "We already spent a fortune on Emma's wedding," they said, as if it were a rational excuse to treat me like a footnote. Emma, of course, came to my wedding in a white dress that was a breath away from being bridal. I still remember her arriving late and loudly, hugging Nathan a second too long. She was already separated from her husband by then. He had filed for divorce after a year of marriage, calling her entitled beyond reason. No one believed him. Our parents rushed to Emma's defense, crying that he was intimidated by a strong woman. I didn't say anything. I didn't want the drama at my wedding. But a part of me sensed it that day, the way she looked at Nathan. After our son, Noah, was born, our life became even more complete. Sure, it was exhausting, but Nathan was so hands-on and supportive. We took shifts, communicated well, grew stronger. Parenthood brought out the best in us. But Emma started showing up more often, uninvited and always claiming she just needed to be around family. My parents encouraged it, always framing it as me being too harsh if I didn't welcome her in. "She's just lonely," they'd say. "She needs support right now." What kind of sister are you, Amelia? What kind of sister, indeed? I didn't know then that this lonely, needy woman was slowly unraveling into someone dangerous. But I was about to find out. At first, I brushed it off as overthinking. Emma would come over and dote on Noah like a doting aunt, too doting, actually. She would always ask to feed him, bathe him, rock him to sleep. Most mothers would appreciate the help, but with her, it felt performative, forced, and calculated. But it was Nathan she couldn't hide her fixation on. It began with compliments. Harmless, if you didn't know her like I did. Wow, you're so lucky, Amelia. Nathan's still handsome even with all that new dad stress. I can see why you married him. Most men wouldn't lift a finger with a baby. You really scored, didn't you? At first, Nathan would politely smile, but when she started showing up without calling, wearing perfume and lipstick just to drop off toys, even he started getting uncomfortable. Is it just me, he asked one evening, or does your sister sort of flirt? I exhaled. It's not just you. But if I say anything, my parents will call me paranoid. Again. Things only got weirder. She began staying longer, ignoring my cues to leave. She'd cook meals for Nathan when I was at work. Sit too close on the couch. Once, I came home and found her in my bedroom, claiming she was just looking for lotion. Nathan started avoiding her outright. I talked to her gently, suggesting she give us some space. She cried. Sobbed, really? You think I'm a burden too? You're the perfect sister, aren't you? The perfect life, the perfect husband. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just attention-seeking. It was resentment. Obsession. Envy, sharp and dangerous. Our parents, of course, brushed it all off. She's just fragile right now. Her divorce has been hard. You always take things too seriously, Amelia. I started keeping Emma at a distance. I made excuses, limited visits, avoided family events where I knew she'd be present. But somehow, she kept worming her way in. Then one day, Noah got sick. It started with vomiting. Then came the fatigue. Noah refused food for days, and he was only 2 sudden changes weren't normal. We rushed to the pediatrician, who ran basic tests and gave us medicine, but something still didn't sit right with me. I cleaned the house top to bottom. Changed the water filters. Scrubbed every bottle and spoon. Nothing explained why my healthy toddler had turned pale, weak, and lethargic. Then it happened again. After another visit from Emma. She had brought homemade soup, cooed over Noah, insisted on feeding him herself. That night, he vomited again. This time, with traces of blood. I went numb. Nathan called for an ambulance. At the hospital, doctors ran more extensive tests. They couldn't pinpoint the exact cause. Food poisoning was their best guess, but I knew better. My gut was screaming. I remembered something Emma had said just a few days earlier. He's so lucky, having a dad like Nathan. What if I had someone like him? That's when it clicked. Emma didn't just want Nathan. She wanted my life. And if removing my son from the picture brought her closer to that fantasy, she'd do it. I didn't say anything to Nathan. Not yet. I needed proof. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the nursery floor watching Noah breathe through the baby monitor. He was stable again. But my heart was thudding like a war drum. The next morning, while Nathan was at work and Noah was asleep, I drove straight to a security company and asked them to install hidden cameras throughout the house. Living room. Kitchen. Nursery. Guest room. Backyard. Everywhere but the bathrooms. The technician raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was protection. I didn't tell anyone, not even Nathan. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew something chilling, Emma would come back. And when she did, I'd be ready. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days after the cameras were installed, Emma called. I made stew for Noah, she chirped. Thought I'd drop by and give you a break. I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to scream no, to slam the door and never let her near us again. But I needed to see it. I needed the truth recorded not just for Nathan or the police, but for myself. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't imagined this entire nightmare. "Sure," I said calmly. "Come by after 1. He'll be up from his nap." She arrived dressed to impress, as usual, tight dress, glossy lips, and perfume that made my eyes sting. She barely acknowledged me, heading straight to the kitchen like she owned the place. I kept my phone in my pocket, ready. I watched her closely, but pretended to be distracted, thumbing through a parenting magazine. She reheated the stew. Stirred it. Then casually pulled a vial from her purse and poured in a few drops. My hand trembled, but I kept my face still. She whistled while stirring. "This will help him sleep. He's been so fussy, hasn't he?" I felt my skin crawl. She brought the bowl to the high chair, all smiles. But just as she lifted the spoon to feed Noah, I stepped in. "Wait." I took the bowl from her hand and calmly poured the contents into a sealable container. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I think he needs something else. I'll feed him later." She stiffened. "I made that for him." I smiled. "Thanks. I'll make sure it doesn't go to waste." She stared at me, trying to read if I suspected anything. I stayed neutral. Let her leave thinking I was still unsure. The moment the door shut, I locked it behind her. Then I called Nathan and said just 4 words, "It's time. Come home." Nathan came home within an hour. I showed him the footage. The color drained from his face as we watched her pour the liquid into our son's food. The camera above the stove had caught it all clear as day. Her face. Her hands. The small glass vial she'd pulled from her handbag. Nathan was trembling with rage. "We're calling the police. Now." The police took it seriously, especially after I gave them the preserved stew and the footage. We also had Noah's medical records showing unexplained symptoms. It all painted a dark and undeniable picture. They said the substance was a slow-acting poison, something that would debilitate a child's system gradually, making it hard to detect. If we hadn't caught her, and she'd continued dosing him. I couldn't finish the thought. The next morning, Emma came over again, acting cheerful, wearing a flowery sundress like she was auditioning for Stepford Wives. Nathan greeted her at the door with 2 uniformed officers behind him. "What's going on?" she asked, backing away. "You're under arrest for attempted poisoning of a minor," one officer said. "You have the right to remain silent." Emma froze. Then tried to laugh. "This is some kind of joke, right? Amelia? Nathan?" But we said nothing. She screamed as they cuffed her. "You set me up. I'm your sister. I was just helping." Noah started crying in my arms. I turned away, gently rocking him as the door closed behind her. Our parents called within the hour, of course. Hysterical. "What have you done?" "She's your sister. She didn't mean it. She's emotional. She just needs help, therapy, not jail." My mother was crying like she was the victim. "I've done what needed to be done," I said coldly. "And if you defend her after this, I don't want you near me or my son." They called again and again. Left messages. Tried guilting me into retracting the charges. But for once in my life, I didn't bend. I cut them off. No explanations. No middle ground. They had protected Emma all her life, fed her entitlement, ignored her cruelty. But now, they'd nearly let her kill my child. There would be no forgiveness for that. The courtroom was a cold, sterile place, nothing like the warmth I longed for at home. But this was where the fight had to be fought. Not just for me or Nathan, but for Noah. The trial dragged on for weeks. Emma's defense tried to twist the story, blaming stress, mental illness, even claiming I fabricated the entire thing out of jealousy. My parents sat in the gallery, their faces stone cold. No sympathy. No support. Their silence was louder than any words. Nathan held my hand tightly every day. I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, but also his unwavering resolve. The evidence was damning: my video recordings, medical reports, the vial Emma had hidden in her purse, and testimonies from friends who'd seen her obsession spiral out of control. But the hardest part wasn't the evidence, it was the betrayal. The knowledge that my own family had chosen to protect Emma over the safety of my child. One afternoon, the judge read the verdict: we find the defendant guilty of attempted poisoning of a minor, with intent to cause harm. Emma was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Justice was served, but the wound left behind was raw and deep. After the verdict, I finally faced my parents. "I won't pretend this didn't happen," I said. "And I won't forget that you chose to defend her, even when my son's life was at risk." My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I could see no remorse, only stubbornness. "Family is complicated," she said weakly. "To me, family means protecting each other," I said. "Not enabling dangerous behavior. You made your choice. I'm making mine." I moved out with Nathan and Noah. We rented a new home far from the chaos. It was hard cutting ties with the people who raised me. But it was necessary. Nathan and I became each other's pillars. We focused on healing Noah and building a safe space where love was unconditional, and no one's safety was ever compromised. Sometimes, I still think about Emma, about how far she fell. But I also know that protecting my family was the bravest and most necessary choice I ever made. For once, I chose me.